The village of Oakhaven, nestled deep in the rolling hills of Vermont, was a place where time seemed to slow, a gentle eddy in the relentless current of modern life. Its quaint charm, the gentle murmur of the Oakhaven River as it wound its way through ancient elms, and the close-knit community were its defining features. Life here revolved around the annual Harvest Festival, a riot of autumn colours and local produce. The bustling weekly farmers' market, where neighbours exchanged gossip along with fresh vegetables, and the ceaseless, yet mostly harmless hum of local gossip that served as Oakhaven's own unique social media. As Dr. Evelyn Reed, the village's sole general practitioner, I considered myself privy to much of it. My days were a comforting rhythm of house calls to the elderly, clinic appointments for scraped knees and seasonal colds, and the occasional evening spent with my sister, Clara Hayes, who possessed an uncanny knack for unearthing every whisper and rumour before it even fully formed. Clara, a retired librarian with an insatiable curiosity, was Oakhaven's unofficial chronicler of human nature. "People are like books, Ev," she'd often say, peering over her spectacles, a knowing glint in her eye. "Full of chapters you never knew existed until you start digging. And Oakhaven, my dear, is a whole library." Our quiet existence, however, was shattered one crisp autumn evening by the news of Julian Blackwood. Julian, a reclusive but immensely wealthy tech magnate, had purchased Blackwood Manor, the grandest estate in Oakhaven, just 2 years prior. The manor, a sprawling Victorian Gothic structure of dark stone and towering turrets, had stood empty for decades, a silent sentinel on the edge of the village until Julian's arrival. He was a man of sharp intellect and even sharper business acumen, known for his ruthless corporate takeovers that left competitors in ruins and a past shrouded in whispers of cutthroat corporate intrigue. He rarely socialized, preferring the solitude of his sprawling estate, surrounded by high walls and ancient, gnarled trees. Yet his presence loomed large over the village, a silent, gilded shadow, a constant reminder of an external world of power and ambition that Oakhaven rarely touched. His sudden arrival had brought a ripple of unease, a sense that Oakhaven's peaceful surface might be hiding deeper, more turbulent currents beneath. I'd been summoned to Blackwood Manor that evening by Julian himself. His voice on the phone had been strained, urgent, almost frantic, a stark contrast to his usual composed, almost aloof demeanour. He spoke of a matter of extreme delicacy and a threat that could unravel everything. The urgency in his tone had overridden my usual evening plans, pulling me into his private world. Upon my arrival, the manor was eerily quiet, the grand entrance hall echoing with my own footsteps. His long-time assistant, a stern, efficient man named Thomas Croft, met me at the door, his face a mask of concern that barely concealed a deeper anxiety. "Mr. Blackwood is in his study, Doctor. He insists on seeing you immediately. Please don't delay." Julian was slumped in his massive leather armchair, positioned behind an ornate mahogany desk that dominated the room. A half-empty glass of amber liquid, likely a strong whiskey, sat precariously close to the edge. His face, usually composed and unreadable, was pale and etched with a raw primal fear I hadn't expected from a man of his stature. He clutched a crumpled letter in his hand, his knuckles white. "Evelyn," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm being blackmailed. Someone knows everything. The old scandal, the truth about the acquisition of Stellar Systems. They know, and they're demanding everything, my entire fortune, my life." He confessed to a dark past, a ruthless corporate maneuver years ago that had indeed ruined a rival company and its founder, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. It was a secret that, if exposed, would not only destroy his carefully constructed reputation as a legitimate businessman, but also lead to severe legal repercussions, potentially imprisonment. The blackmailer, he revealed, was someone within his own inner circle, someone he had trusted implicitly. He refused to name them, only hinting at their proximity, their intimate knowledge of his darkest secrets. "I need 24 hours, Evelyn. Just 24 hours to figure this out, to make this right. Promise me you won't say a word. To anyone. Not even Clara." The desperation in his eyes was chilling, a raw plea that bypassed my professional detachment. I promised, my Hippocratic oath warring with a growing sense of dread, the weight of Julian's secret pressing down on me like a physical burden. I left Blackwood Manor that night with a heavy heart, the grand facade of the estate now seeming to mock the turmoil within. Have you ever felt the burden of a secret, knowing it could change everything if revealed? The next morning, the crisp autumn air of Oakhaven was pierced by a collective gasp, a ripple of shock that spread faster than any rumor. Julian Blackwood was found dead in his study, a single ornate letter opener protruding from his chest, its silver gleam mocking the stillness of the scene. The news spread like wildfire, fueled by Clara's rapid dissemination of information, her phone practically glued to her ear as she relayed every detail to her network of village informants. Chief Inspector Davies, a gruff, no-nonsense officer from the county, arrived swiftly, his skepticism palpable as he surveyed the scene. "A quiet village, Dr. Reed," he'd grumbled, his eyes sweeping over the quaint houses, "and now a murder, a very high-profile murder. Everyone's a suspect until proven otherwise, especially in a place where everyone knows everyone else's business." The initial investigation, led by the local constable, Officer Jensen, a well-meaning but inexperienced young man, quickly pointed to a break-in. The study window was found ajar, and muddy footprints, clearly visible on the polished floor, led away from the manor towards the dense woods that bordered the estate. Officer Jensen was quick to latch onto the theory of a desperate burglar, perhaps someone from outside Oakhaven, a transient drawn by the manor's wealth. But something felt profoundly off. The manor's security system was state-of-the-art, a fortress of alarms and cameras, and Julian was known for his meticulous nature, his obsessive attention to detail. The open window, the almost too perfect footprints, felt almost convenient. In a world where everyone has something to hide, how do you distinguish truth from the most elaborate of lies? The arrival of Detective Maxwell Sterling, a renowned private investigator from New York, added a new, sophisticated layer to the unfolding drama. Maxwell was everything Chief Inspector Davies was not. Urbane, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that seemed out of place in Oakhaven, with an almost theatrical flair for deduction that bordered on the uncanny. He moved with a quiet intensity, his piercing blue eyes missing nothing, absorbing every subtle detail, every unspoken gesture. He immediately dismissed the simple burglary theory, his voice a smooth, low murmur that carried an undeniable authority. "The obvious, Inspector," he'd said, his gaze sweeping over the staged scene, "is rarely the truth, especially in a case where the victim was a man of such intricate dealings. A man who lived a life of shadows and secrets would not fall to a simple thief. Maxwell's methods were indeed unconventional. He didn't just interview, he observed. He spent hours watching the subtle shifts in facial expressions, the nervous tics, the unspoken glances that passed between the residents of Blackwood Manor. He seemed to read the very air, sensing the undercurrents of fear, guilt, and resentment. He interviewed everyone: Thomas Croft, the stoic assistant, whose composure seemed almost too perfect; Mrs. Albright, the long-serving housekeeper, whose penchant for gossip now seemed to hold a darker edge; even the quiet gardener, Mr. Olson, a man of few words who seemed more interested in his prize-winning roses than the unfolding tragedy, yet whose eyes held a strange, distant sadness. I found myself drawn into Maxwell's orbit, becoming his reluctant confidant and observer. He seemed to value my medical perspective, my intimate knowledge of the villagers and their ailments, their hidden anxieties. He asked me to recount my last conversation with Julian, probing for every detail, every nuance, every fleeting expression. I omitted the part about the blackmail, bound by my promise to Julian, a promise now made to a dead man. But the omission gnawed at me, a heavy weight in my conscience, making me feel complicit in a deception I barely understood. I wondered if Maxwell sensed my hesitation, my unspoken secret. Maxwell revealed his initial findings, each one a subtle crack in the facade of the perfect crime. The muddy footprints outside the study window, initially attributed to the supposed burglar, were too perfectly defined, almost staged, as if someone had carefully placed the boot and pressed down. He also found a small, almost imperceptible burn mark on the study's ornate rug near the fireplace that seemed utterly out of place amidst the grandeur. "A curious detail, wouldn't you agree, Doctor?" he'd mused, his eyes fixed on the spot, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. As if something was deliberately incinerated. Something small, but important. The tension in Oakhaven grew palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket that settled over the village. Suspicion shifted from the unknown burglar to the familiar faces within the manor, then to the villagers themselves. Thomas Croft, Julian's assistant, initially so composed, was revealed to have a crippling gambling problem and significant debts, a fact uncovered by Clara's tireless research. Mrs. Albright, the housekeeper, had recently been seen making large, unexplained cash deposits, far beyond her modest salary, fueling whispers of a secret fortune. Even young Finn, the stable boy, usually so cheerful, was found to have a history of petty theft from his previous employers, a desperate attempt to help his struggling family. Everyone, it seemed, had a secret, a motive, a reason to wish Julian Blackwood gone, or at least to profit from his demise. The village, once a picture of innocence, now felt like a viper's nest of hidden desires and dark pasts. What happens when the lines between victim and perpetrator blur and the truth is more shocking than any lie? Then came the second death, or rather, the second act of the elaborate play. A cryptic note arrived at the Oakhaven Gazette, delivered by an anonymous courier, detailing the exact location of a hidden safe in Blackwood Manor, along with instructions to retrieve a specific, incriminating document. The note was signed, chillingly, "The Phantom." The name itself sent shivers down my spine, suggesting an unseen, elusive force. When Chief Inspector Davies and Detective Maxwell Sterling arrived at the location, they found the safe empty, save for a single burnt photograph. A picture of Julian Blackwood, alive and well, standing beside a younger, terrified version of Thomas Croft, holding what appeared to be a stack of illicit bonds. The photo was dated years ago, from the time of the Stellar Systems acquisition, a damning piece of evidence. The revelation sent shockwaves through the manor, confirming the whispers of Julian's dark past. Thomas Croft, confronted with the irrefutable evidence of the photograph, finally broke. His stoicism shattered. He confessed to having been blackmailed by Julian Blackwood for years, ever since the Stellar Systems scandal. He had been Julian's unwitting accomplice in the corporate fraud, and Julian had used that knowledge to control him, forcing him into a life of servitude and silent complicity. But Croft vehemently denied the murder. "He was alive when I left him, I swear!" he cried, his voice raw with a mixture of fear and desperation. He was planning to disappear, to escape the real threat. He told me he was going to stage his own death. He said it was the only way out. His words hung in the air, a new, terrifying possibility. When the curtain falls on a meticulously crafted illusion, what remains of the truth? The confession from Thomas Croft, while shocking, still left many questions unanswered, threads dangling in the intricate tapestry of deception. Detective Maxwell Sterling, however, seemed to connect the dots with an almost supernatural speed, his mind working at a pace that left Chief Inspector Davies and me struggling to keep up. He called a final dramatic meeting of all the key players at Blackwood Manor: myself, Clara Hayes, Chief Inspector Davies, Thomas Croft, now under police custody, his face a mixture of relief and fear, Mrs. Albright, and even the timid Mr. Olson. The grand drawing room, usually a place of quiet reflection, now felt like a courtroom, charged with unspoken tension. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maxwell began, his voice calm but authoritative, his gaze sweeping over each of our faces. "We are not here to find a murderer, for there was no murder. We are here to unmask a ghost. Julian Blackwood is not dead. His murder was a meticulously planned illusion, a desperate act to escape a far greater threat than any of us imagined. A threat that forced him to vanish from the world he knew." He then laid out his deductions, piece by piece, each revelation a hammer blow to the established narrative. The murder weapon. The ornate letter opener was indeed Julian's, but the wound it inflicted was superficial, designed with theatrical precision to look fatal without actually being so. The blood found on the scene, he revealed, was a sophisticated theatrical prop, cleverly applied to simulate a fatal injury without actual harm. Julian had studied forensic details to make it convincing. The muddy footprints. These were indeed staged, a deliberate red herring. Julian, knowing the police would look for a conventional burglar, had carefully created them himself, using a pair of old boots with distinctive soles, before slipping away through a hidden passage he'd discovered in the manor, leading directly to the dense woods. He had left them as a false trail, a final flourish to his vanishing act. The blackmail letter. The crumpled letter Julian showed me was real, but it wasn't from an internal blackmailer as he implied. It was from a powerful international crime syndicate, a shadowy organization known for its ruthless tactics. They had indeed discovered his past corporate malfeasance, the truth about the Stellar Systems acquisition, and were now demanding an astronomical sum, threatening not just his reputation, but his very life and the lives of those he cared about. Julian had chosen to disappear rather than pay or face their wrath, seeing his death as the only viable escape route from an inescapable trap. The telephone call. The frantic call I received, supposedly from Thomas Croft, was actually Julian himself, using a sophisticated voice modulator to disguise his voice. He knew I, as the village doctor, would rush to the manor, find the body, and alert the authorities, thus initiating the murder investigation and creating the perfect window for his escape. It was a calculated manipulation of my professional duty and our brief, strained trust. The burnt photograph. This was Julian's final, most cunning message, a deliberate clue left for Maxwell, knowing his reputation for unraveling complex deceptions. It was a warning to Thomas Croft, ensuring his continued silence about Julian's past and present, and a subtle hint to Maxwell about the true nature of the threat. The Phantom was Julian's chosen pseudonym, a nod to his plan to send reverberations through the criminal underworld without revealing his continued existence, a ghost haunting his own past. The true twist, however, was revealed when Maxwell turned his piercing gaze to Mrs. Albright, the housekeeper, who had remained stoic throughout the revelations. "And you, Mrs. Albright," Maxwell stated, his voice dropping to a quiet, almost sympathetic tone, "were not just making unexplained cash deposits. You were actively assisting Julian Blackwood in his disappearance. You helped him secure a new identity, a new life, and a safe passage out of the country." Mrs. Albright, her face pale as parchment, finally broke down. Her long-held composure crumbled, revealing the immense burden she had carried. She confessed that Julian had approached her weeks ago, revealing the terrifying threat against him. He had offered her a substantial sum, enough to pay off her ailing sister's medical bills and secure her own retirement, to help him disappear. He had appealed to her long-standing loyalty, her quiet devotion to Blackwood Manor, and her own hidden financial struggles. She had helped him stage the scene, meticulously placing the murder weapon, disposing of the theatrical blood, and arranging his escape route. She had been the one to find the body, following his precise instructions, playing her part in the grand illusion. The Phantom was not a blackmailer, not a killer, but Julian Blackwood himself, a master manipulator who had turned his own death into his ultimate escape. He had gambled everything, not on a quick win at the poker table, but on a complete disappearance from his old life, leaving behind a meticulously crafted trail of calculated deception to throw off his pursuers. The aftermath was complex, leaving Oakhaven reeling. Thomas Croft was cleared of murder, but faced charges related to his past corporate fraud, a bitter freedom. Mrs. Albright faced charges for aiding and abetting, her loyalty costing her dearly. Chief Inspector Davies, though initially chagrined by being outmaneuvered, admitted Maxwell Sterling's brilliance with a grudging respect, acknowledging that some truths required a different kind of vision. As for Julian Blackwood, he was never seen in Oakhaven again. He became a legend, a whispered tale among the villagers, a ghost in the grand manor he had so dramatically abandoned. The Oakhaven Illusion became a cautionary tale, a chilling reminder that even in the quietest of places, beneath the surface of everyday life, the most elaborate deceptions can unfold. And the truth, when it finally emerges, can be far stranger and more intricate than any murder. It was a testament to the fact that sometimes the greatest crime isn't taking a life, but making one disappear. What do you think was the most surprising revelation in this story? And how far would you go to escape a threat to your life?
That's it, folks. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of English, please subscribe to English Tale Box for more captivating narratives and language insights. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to share this video with anyone who loves a good story or is learning English. Thank you for watching.